Okay, Braindead, Dead Alive. Nope, this is much too close. Pop, 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 pop goes a weasel goes pop. Braindead. All right, finally getting into it. Braindead, 1992. Braindead, Dead Alive in North American markets because when it was released in 1992 in New Zealand, it was Braindead. However, when it came to North American markets, Dead Alive. So you'll hear me probably absentmindedly refer to it interchangeably, Braindead or Dead Alive, but just know, same flick. So let's get into it. Right away, I said that we weren't going to fluff around. Okay, so should you watch Braindead, Dead Alive? Yes, absolutely you should watch it. Why? Because it is just pure fun. It is an enjoyable horror comedy. Reasons why you might want to avoid it. It is gross. It is meant to gross you out. It is meant to make you go, "Oh man, I can't believe they went there," and it's just hilarious because it's not. They are not striving for realism. They are the filmmakers and Peter Jackson. There was absolutely an intention behind this movie. They wanted it to be funny. They wanted it to be grotesque. They weren't going for something and then they failed so miserably that you have to laugh at it. It's not one of those movies that are like so bad that they're good. They nailed what they were going for. Okay, so now we're getting into in depth why you should watch this movie. Number one, it's just straight up fun. These days, I look for movies that are actually enjoyable ways to spend my time. When I was younger, I wanted to be intellectually challenged. I wanted for movies to ask me deep philosophical questions and not even really need to answer them. I wanted to be intellectually stimulated. I wanted to be challenged emotionally. And I was okay with watching a movie that stuck with me for days, weeks, years afterward. I was okay with having like stress nightmares for weeks afterward. And that's not so much the case anymore. I'm a parent. I have responsibilities. I have really high pressure shit going on in my life. And then, kind of like, even on the periphery, the world is on fire, screaming and crying and shitting itself. And I want to spend my downtime watching something that I can enjoy, that I can laugh at or like cringe at, but not have to think too deeply about. This is a movie like that. It is fun, it is silly, it is 90 minutes of Peter Jackson and the rest of the filmmakers just being a bunch of silly geese having fun and making something that is still making us go, oh man, I can't believe they did that. You know, 10 years later, because 1992 is only 10 years ago, and you can't convince me otherwise. Reason number two. This, funnily enough, despite it being grotesquely over the top, violent, and gory, literally setting records for the amount of blood on screen at one time. It's since been dethroned, but it for 1992, it set records for how much blood is in it. Despite that, I recommend this movie a lot, even to people, especially to people who are like, I don't like horror, I don't like scary movies. I'm like, I get that. I understand that. But watch this movie. And then I even describe how over the top, like uber, like splattery it is. But I describe it this way. It is a horror movie that introduces you to the notion that horror movies can be fun and don't have to be self-serious and don't have to like, you know, give you nightmares in order for you to enjoy them. It is a good movie to put at the very beginning of a flowchart of what kind of horror fan are you? Because you can literally go, do you enjoy Brain Dead or do you not? And then it kicks you off into entirely different directions depending on your answer. If you can get behind the idea that horror can be fun and that you can look at it and laugh at somebody getting their head literally kicked off by a kung fu priest screaming, "I kick ass for the Lord," then the whole horror genre is going to open itself to you in ways that I think are way more fun than if you were forever looking and turning over every horror rock to find the deepest, darkest, most disturbing, most scary thing possible. That's not the kind of horror fan I am. I like to have fun. Another thing that I'm pretty fond of saying when I'm recommending this movie to people who are non-horror fans, but like they feel like they want to get into horror, at least like explore it. They're horror curious. I say this is a really good movie to start with because, and just follow me on this weird journey that I'm about to take you on. You know that scene in Harry Potter that I forget which movie it is. It might be like the third one where the kids are learning how to defend themselves against boggarts. And boggarts are like these little, like, flying goblin like dark fairy creatures that take on the shape of your deepest fear. And the spell to counteract the fear is to make the fear ridiculous. So, like, one kid's afraid of spiders, and there's this giant spider that the boggart takes the form of, and he casts the ridiculous spell, and it puts roller skates on the spider, and it goes like, sliding around, and then immediately the kid starts cracking up, and the power has been taken away from the thing that they are afraid of. I feel like this movie casts a similar spell on the things that scare us. It makes them so cartoonish and ridiculous and silly that it helps us to appreciate these things that on the surface, when you say them out loud, sound really horrific and terrifying. But the filmmakers did such a great job at like making them cartoonish and over the top that you can take them on and appreciate them in a completely new way, which I mean, that might be. I know I said I don't like being asked philosophical questions and I don't like to over intellectualize movies anymore. I'm literally over intellectualizing something called Braindead, Dead Alive. But, I think the point stands. If you can get behind this idea that horror movies can do that, they're not just meant to scare you, they are meant to subvert the collective fears and anxieties of the people and what's going on in a certain culture or subculture at the time so that you can better deal with them in a healthy way. That is the power of really good horror. It isn't just like, I want to create a scary story. Some of them do that. Some of them are awesome at that, and I love that. But there's more to horror. Even a movie like Brain Dead, Dead Alive, that is on the surface just meant to gross you out, has the power to do these things, subvert anxieties and fears, and help you appreciate this art that on the surface is very, very silly, but does something for us, something real and awesome. Can you tell that I love this movie? Reason number three, it's a really good looking movie. So they shot this for budgetary reasons on 16 millimeter film as opposed to 35 millimeter film. 16 doesn't look as good, right? 35 millimeter is a lot crisper. Like the sell a lot of the times before it became like not something to be chasing after was like that it looks more digital. It looks sharper and crisper. But because they made this decision, driven by budgetary reasons, the film has this extra character. It is very grainy. A lot of people say that you look at it, it's a film that came out in 1992, and you're like, it looks even older than that. It looks like it came from the 70s. You can see it. You can see there's like a tactility about the way that the movie looks, and also very soft. Like the focus is soft in like this super pleasing way, in a way that all of these Instagram influencers with their like filters and stuff. Wow, I just sounded really old. People on Instagram are like actually trying to emulate now. This movie did just because it was looking at the bottom line, right? But because of that, it just gives this movie this awesome character to it. The wardrobe is awesome. The set decoration, the art direction is great. The colors, the house. I love the house. I love the way that they look. The colors that are in this movie. The miniature trolley scene at the very beginning of this movie. I saw a photograph one time. I'm going to try to find it. I'm going to put it here at this point in this video, where the the team and Peter Jackson are like posing in front of the miniatures. It blew my mind, just because they, I don't think they use that miniature set at any other point in the movie. So they just did it for that one section at the very beginning, which is kind of brilliant when you think about it, because it immediately sets the tone for something special that they're about to do. It also speaks to the love of craft that Peter Jackson and his crew um, very clearly have. The stop motion Sumatran rat monkey, it looks janky as hell, but it is lovingly crafted. By our standards, it looks janky as hell. But this was also an homage to one of Peter Jackson's favorite movies of all time, the King Kong, the stop motion King Kong movies, and like the horror movies that came decades before him. And he did something to kind of like call that out. There's like the opening scene is also set on Skull Island, which is where King Kong took place. So another little Easter egg for you. But that's the thing. This movie, despite it appearing to be a very superficial and silly movie, has love poured into it. And you can see that. If you know where to look, it's there, and that's awesome. Okay, iconic scenes. This movie has a few of them. If you're trying to get into horror, one of the main things about being a part of the horror community is having these points of reference and being able to speak to specific scenes and make in jokes about them. That's the truth about any community, right? This one has a few of them that I've already referenced a couple of them already, but there's things like the kung fu fighting priest who's literally like kicking and punching appendages off of zombies, and he yells, "I kick arse for the Lord." That's hilarious. Another one for you. There are multiple baby zombie fight scenes, not just one, multiple, and not multiple babies. It's the same friggin' zombie baby that they're fighting. There may or may not even be a zombie baby in the blender moment. Don't want to spoil it, but it could be there. Then there is the record breaking lawnmower scene. This is where like the needle got pushed into the red, badumcha. And there are just buckets, just like fire hose levels of blood in this scene, where the protagonist is literally mowing through hordes of zombies, and it is as awesome as it sounds. Finally, there is the custard scene, the infamous custard scene. So I won't spoil it for you, but I've said numerous times that this movie is grotesque, gross, over the top, and just meant to make you go, ugh. So consider for a moment what an infamous custard scene in that movie might entail. I'll leave it at that. Totally worth watching. Amazing. Reason number 6. It's funny to me. At the end of the day, this is a love story. It's a friggin' love story. There is a love story at the core of this movie, and that's what it begins with, and that's what it ends with, and it is just so beautiful. So that is my short and my long case for Braindead, Dead Alive. If you haven't noticed, I am a massive, massive fan of this movie. So yeah, I hope you got something out of it. I wasn't going to include this. This isn't in the script that I wrote for myself, just to kind of try to organize my thoughts. but it occurred to me while I'm standing here talking through the points that I did write out that I completely left out Peter Jackson himself, who's awesome. And I think that for like mainstream audiences who only know him for the Lord of the Rings stuff, I mean, that's still an accomplishment. That is, he's an like Oscar winner, multiple Oscar winner for his work on the Lord of the Rings movies, and they're great. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I think that if you only know him for that, it's you're really doing yourself a disservice. He is an awesome artist and filmmaker and a lover of movies, and he is, like all great filmmakers, a fan first, and it is so evident in the love and the care that he puts into his stories. He's a storyteller, and this movie, as silly as it is a fantastic testament to just that. The like little the the little touches that he put there that he really didn't need to. Like the miniature trolley and like the little cityscape that he built, just incredible. The Sumatran rat monkey, the stop motion of it, it's just it's homage. It was practical. It was, there's like the scenes there. There is an attention to not detail, but a single-mindedness to the way that this movie was directed, where you can tell, and that's what I love about Peter Jackson, you can tell that he gets an idea in his head, he gets a vision for it, and he just freaking goes after it. You can see that in all of his other movies, and I'm not talking the Lord of the Rings movies, although like that's when like the stuff really came to fruition. But I mean, like in his early movies, they start with a very specific idea, and then like and really ridiculous ideas, and he just friggin' goes for it, and I love that so much. um Consider this: the thing that he did immediately after this movie was Heavenly Creatures, which he was nominated for an Oscar for. So he went from this movie to nominated for Heavenly Creatures as a co-writer. Um, I think that's not an accident. That's testament to the kind of storyteller he is, the passion that he has for telling a story, telling it well. And it wasn't horror. It was a little different, but it doesn't matter, because a good storyteller is a good storyteller is a good storyteller. It doesn't matter if you're telling horror, comedy, drama, action, you can tell a story. And Peter Jackson is a storyteller, one of my favorite storytellers. So it's worth watching this movie just so that you can see kind of an unvarnished look at what his storytelling soul looked like without the massive amounts of budget and studio interventions that I'm sure he inevitably faced. It's worth watching, especially if you're a filmmaker, and you want to see the way that somebody goes about making something on the cheap. um, but really it has this kind of like DIY feel to it, and like I said, this single-mindedness of it, that it really makes me want to support the movie, support him, and I'm a fan. I don't care about the people who feel like he sold out. Like I think he is just the bee's knees. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you disagree with any of the points. Let me know if I messed anything up or you take issue with something that I said here, because we're still figuring this out. This is really video number one, and I hope to get a lot better about this. So, yeah, hit up those comments, like, subscribe. Oh, it feels so gross coming out of my mouth. Anyway, later, y'all.